In contemporary Western societies, the discourse surrounding Islamophobia is deeply complex and multifaceted. Critics often argue that genuine criticism of Islam is unfairly labeled as Islamophobia, stifling legitimate debate and intellectual freedom. They contend that Islam, like any other religion, should be open to scrutiny and challenge without fear of being branded as bigoted or intolerant. Proponents of this view emphasize the importance of distinguishing between criticism of religious doctrines and prejudice against followers of the religion. On the other hand, there is a widespread belief that prejudice and discrimination against Muslims in Western societies are rampant and often masked under the guise of critiquing Islam. Individuals holding this perspective point out that many Muslims face bias, hostility, and unequal treatment in various aspects of life. From employment opportunities to social interactions, they argue that Islamophobia is not merely an issue of religious critique, but is intertwined with racism, xenophobia, and a general fear of the other, which leads to the marginalization and alienation of Muslim communities. The debate over Islamophobia often centers on broader issues of racism and xenophobia, highlighting the intersectionality of discrimination. Many scholars and activists argue that Islamophobia cannot be fully understood without acknowledging the racial and ethnic dimensions that accompany it. In many Western societies, Muslims are often stereotyped based on racial and ethnic backgrounds, conflating religious identity with racial identity. This intersectionality means that challenges faced by Muslims are both religious and racially motivated, complicating the discourse and making it more difficult to address effectively. Religious tolerance is another crucial aspect of the discussions on Islamophobia. Advocates of religious freedom stress that every individual should have the right to practice their faith without fear of persecution or discrimination. They argue that true religious tolerance involves not only the acceptance of different beliefs, but also actively combating prejudice and bigotry against any religious group. This perspective calls for a more inclusive and empathetic society, where differences are respected and celebrated, rather than feared and suppressed. In conclusion, the discourse on Islamophobia in Western societies is a contentious and deeply layered issue. It encompasses legitimate concerns about religious critique, intertwined with serious issues of racism and xenophobia. Addressing Islamophobia requires a nuanced understanding that separates anti-Muslim prejudice from legitimate discourse on religious practices, while promoting a culture of genuine religious tolerance and mutual respect. As Western societies continue to navigate these complex discussions, it remains imperative to foster an environment where freedom of expression coexists with the protection of minority rights and dignity.